First at 11, Deere & Company is responding to former President Donald Trump's threat to put a 200% tariff on products the company tries to sell into the U.S.
John Deere is moving some production from Iowa to Mexico.
According to an email that was sent to Waterloo employees, the company says all production of cabs, welding, and assembly for current and future products.
John Deere has cut over 1,800 jobs across its U.S. operations, with much of its production quietly relocated to Mexico. Yet in stark contrast to the headlines of layoffs and plant closures, Deere's stock has climbed nearly 17% in just the past 6 months, buoyed by stronger than expected earnings in Q2 2025 and bullish analyst forecast. While financial markets cheer, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Towns hollowed out by industrial retreat workers, displaced, and farmers facing rising equipment costs and limited access to service support. Deere continues to pour investment into precision agriculture AI systems and electrification, transforming itself into a tech-first agribusiness giant. But for many, the question remains, can a company still claim to serve American agriculture while exporting its manufacturing base and pricing out the very communities that built it? To understand what's happening today, we need to look back at what John Deere once represented. For nearly 2 centuries, it has stood as an American icon, inseparable from the image of the family farm, steel plows, green tractors, and rural self-reliance. The company wasn't just a brand, it was a symbol of trust, resilience, and national pride. For generations of farmers, owning a Deere wasn't just practical, it was personal. But that legacy has been shifting. Since 2024, Deere has accelerated the relocation of manufacturing to Mexico and other lower-cost regions. At the same time, it's been repositioning itself as a high-tech agriculture company, investing heavily in electric machinery, autonomous systems, and software platforms like Precision Ag. These shifts are not inherently wrong. They reflect a global market and real innovation. But they also raise questions. If Deere is no longer building machines in the communities it once served, and if its new tools are priced beyond the reach of small farms, is it still the same company at heart? The turning point in this story isn't just economic, it's political. In early 2025, President Donald Trump re-emerged on the national stage with a bold promise to
bring thousands and thousands of businesses and trillions of dollars in wealth back to the good old USA
by imposing punitive tariffs on agricultural equipment imported from Mexico.
As you know, they've announced a few days ago that they're going to move a lot of their manufacturing business to Mexico.
The move was widely seen as a direct response to companies like John Deere, which had shifted major production operations across the border over the past year. Trump's message resonated in towns hit hardest by layoffs, but the economic consequences were far more complex. Within weeks, tensions between the U.S. and Mexico began to rise. Industry groups warned that such tariffs would disrupt supply chains, increase input costs, and ultimately drive up prices for farmers already facing narrow margins. And that's exactly what happened. Equipment prices ticked upward, dealerships adjusted inventories cautiously, and uncertainty gripped a market already navigating high inflation and technological upheaval. Ironically, Deere didn't suffer, at least not in the way Trump's rhetoric suggested it might. In fact, according to Benzinga and MarketBeat, the company beat earnings expectations in Q2 2025, demonstrating strong performance despite the added costs of tariff exposure. Analysts even raised their stock price forecasts, projecting up to 20% upside potential based on Deere's strong cash flow, dealer expansion, and digital strategy. This dynamic, where a company can thrive financially while workers and buyers absorb the shock, reveals a deeper tension. In the short term, protectionist policy may score political points. But for farmers and rural workers, the impact feels less like relief and more like collateral damage in a fight they didn't choose. While headlines focus on stock prices and policy announcements, it's the people on the ground, the workers, the farmers, the small-town families who are feeling the real impact. In states like Iowa, Illinois, and Georgia, where John Deere once operated major production facilities, the loss of over 1,800 jobs since 2024 has dealt a sharp blow. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent livelihoods, generational skills, and entire communities built around a single employer. When a Deere plant scales back or relocates, the effects ripple outward. Local businesses close, school districts tighten budgets, and once stable neighborhoods begin to hollow out. These are the kinds of places where a good job at the factory meant stability, a mortgage, a retirement plan, maybe college for the kids. Without that anchor, communities that helped build one of America's most iconic brands are now left to fend for themselves. Farmers, too, are caught in the crossfire, and they're being hit from multiple directions. First, equipment prices have risen in part due to tariffs and inflation, but also because the latest machines are packed with costly new technologies. Second, maintenance and repair have become more difficult and more expensive, especially as parts and servicing are increasingly routed through international supply chains. In rural America, downtime during harvest season isn't just an inconvenience, it's a crisis. But perhaps most damaging is the erosion of trust. For generations, John Deere represented reliability. Farmers knew the equipment, trusted the brand, and often passed both down to their children. Now many feel priced out and left behind as the company focuses on premium technology and overseas efficiencies. The result is a growing disconnect, a company surging in shareholder value, while many of the people who built that value struggle to see their place in its future. John Deere is no longer just a machinery manufacturer, it's positioning itself as a tech-first agricultural powerhouse. Over the past 2 years, the company has significantly increased its investment in precision agriculture, electric drivetrains, artificial intelligence, and cloud-based farm management platforms. Its vision is clear to lead the next era of smart farming through data-driven automation. Tractors that steer themselves, drones that scout fields, algorithms that tell farmers when to plant, irrigate, or harvest, all connected through Deere's proprietary software ecosystem. This is not mere experimentation. Deere is betting big on recurring revenue from software subscriptions, remote diagnostics, and autonomous hardware, shifting its business model toward long-term digital services. And from a market standpoint, the strategy is working. In 2025, analysts at Goldman Sachs and Benzinga reaffirmed buy ratings for Deere, citing the company's strong performance in high-margin tech offerings, dealer demand ahead of planting season, and an increasingly global customer base. Deere has not only weathered recent tariffs, it has outperformed expectations despite them. But for all the excitement on Wall Street, the transformation leaves many behind. These innovations, impressive as they are often too expensive or too complex for small and mid-sized farms, which make up a substantial part of rural America. And crucially, there's been no public commitment from Deere to preserve or grow US-based manufacturing jobs as it transitions into this high-tech future. Job cuts continue, offshoring expands, and much of the new R&D and capital expenditure appears focused on global competitiveness rather than domestic stability. What emerges is a company undeniably adapting, but perhaps also drifting away from its historical base. Deere is modernizing agriculture. But for many workers and independent farmers, the question is no longer just about innovation. It's about inclusion. Will they be part of the future? Deere is building or priced out of it entirely? So after nearly 2 centuries of building tractors in the Heartland, after rising on the strength of American labor and rural loyalty, who does John Deere really belong to today? The company was born in Illinois. It prospered in towns like Waterloo, Dubuque, and Moline. It earned trust by building machines that quite literally shaped American soil. But in 2025, Deere manufactures a growing share of its equipment in Mexico and Brazil, powers its strategy with AI and automation, and prices its most advanced machines far beyond the reach of the average US farmer. It's not wrong for a business to evolve, especially in a global tech-driven economy, but it's fair to ask, has Deere evolved away from the people who built it? The very communities that helped turn a steel plow into an empire are now watching that empire look elsewhere for labor, for growth, for profit. For some, the signs are unmistakable. A company once rooted in rural America now speaks the language of Silicon Valley and Wall Street. It earns applause from analysts, but skepticism from farmers. It cuts jobs at home while expanding abroad. It rolls out cutting-edge tools, but without a clear path for small growers to afford or access them. So we're left with a simple, urgent question. Is John Deere still ours, or has it become just another corporation, publicly American but operationally global and financially detached? This isn't just a question for Deere. It's a question for every company navigating the tension between innovation profit and responsibility to place. And it's a question only the public can answer. We've covered the layoffs, the offshoring, the politics, the profits, and the pivot to automation. Now the real questions are yours to answer. Do you believe tariffs can actually bring jobs back? Or are they just political theater with economic consequences? Should a company like John Deere be expected to keep production in the US, given its history and cultural significance? Or are we facing a reality where the future of agriculture no longer includes the people who've worked the land for generations? This isn't just a John Deere story, it's a case study in how American industry is changing and what we're willing to accept in return for innovation and efficiency. So, now we turn it over to you. What do you think is this evolution or abandonment? Share your thoughts in the comments because this conversation doesn't end here, and it shouldn't.